I'll do that this time. All righty, thank you, Steffi. That was awesome. So from that, now we're going to go to data and machine learning and science and weirdness. So this is Alan Laidlaw from the Home Depot. You haven't got one of those before, right? And Alan, take it away. Thanks.
Okay. Well, we're working on the mic. Yeah, everybody can hear me all right? Yeah? Okay. That's good.
I think because we need it low so we project.
No, I can handle it. I've been short my whole life, so this is fine. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming today. I'm Alan. I wanted to just say up front, I am not an astronaut, so you don't have to worry about that. Right? It's fine. I'll roll with it. Thank you. Yeah, I really wanted to be an astronaut actually. I went to space camp, dead set on being an astronaut, and ironically they also agreed I was too short. So they said, hey kid, be an aeronautical engineer. That led somehow to UX and programming and to Home Depot, which I see a lot of other Home Depots, Home Despots? Oh, yeah? Okay, great. Yeah, so I get to work on machine learning solutions at Home Depot. I got into machine learning because everybody heard the hype about it, and I would see these strange Greek numbers and letters and have no idea what that has to do with this, but there was always cat photos involved, and somehow you get enough cat photos and you have self-driving cars. It's stuck there. Did it move forward? Okay, we're stuck. Well, I had a neat picture of a self-driving car, but perfect, okay. Yeah, right, I still don't really know how that works, but it's a fun job. Now, machine learning isn't new, as I'm sure we all know. It's been around since the 40s at least, 50s. Alan Turing came up with one version of artificial intelligence. He got to talk with Claude Shannon about that, which is pretty wild. They weren't able to talk about anything else, but they could talk about artificial intelligence. If the Air Force had known about machine learning back then, it may have helped them with their problem. They were trying to move away from these planes into jet propulsion. They had the technology down, but they were having one little problem with scale. And it wasn't in the jets or in the wings, it was actually in the cockpit. They couldn't tell whether it was a problem with, if it was with the pilots or with the design of the cockpit. So they took a closer look at the helmets. They took a closer look at the pedals, all the different controls. And that went back to 1926, when the Army was designing the first planes. And the measurements that they took on the pilots, the red-blooded American pilots, the average, no females, just guys, average height, arm length, and these measurements that lasted for 30 years. This approach of finding the standardized average, which is sort of the heart of data science, is the only way you can pretty much scale technology. That's what we've been trained to do. This is an old idea that's known as Taylorism or scientific management. Scientific management, let's see, I'm not even sure how I'm doing on time, but right here. Great, perfect. Scientific management came from Frederick Taylor, and it was timed right around with the Industrial Revolution. So it was perfect timing, the idea of assembly lines, optimization, going straight for the middle. Otherwise known as the bell curve. This is how I would argue how we think today, because this is the schools that we graduate from, the places that we work every day, are all a product of this kind of thinking. Now, I got that story from the book End of Average, which is a fantastic book. I suggest everyone check it out. And in that book, he talks about the opposite, perhaps, of the bell curve, which is known as the jaggedness principle. This is just a note for me to remember kind of where I'm at. So the jaggedness principle would be like, say for instance, if I was standing next to a basketball player, between the two of us, we might have the perfect height for an astronaut, right? That does not apply at all to, to an astronaut's problem. A different way that I like to think about jaggedness that's not in the book, but it's the idea of the coastline. Has anyone worked on a project that's estimated to take 30 days, but it winds up taking 6 months? Okay, great. That always bothered me until I stumbled onto this Quora article, which I can tweet that out afterwards. And it's basically the idea of, if you looked at Google Maps of the coast of San Francisco, it might say that there's a portion that's 40 miles long. And so you plan your day around hiking along the coastline. And what you discover as you are going along the topology, it just keeps getting longer and longer, right? So even though Google Maps says you've only gone 5 miles, you feel like you've gone 40, right? This is an idea of granularity in data science, that you can get very, very deep into the data, and at some point you have to make a choice. What is too much data? That's a trade-off that data scientists have to make all the time. All right, so back to our story about the cockpits. When the Air Force discovered this problem around the statistics, the standardization of the data that they were using, they did something really cool. They said, this is not acceptable. We're no longer going to design for the average. We're going to make the system work for the individual. So they went to the airplane manufacturers and said, you've got to figure this problem out. They went to the aeronautical engineers. I mean, can you imagine being in the room when your one client says, okay, I need you to design all your planes, but they have to work for everybody. In an awesome way, they actually figured out the problem. That's why we have adjustable seats today. That's how that was invented. Same with the helmets and everything else. Okay, so how does that apply to today? How that applies to today is we basically have these cockpits. And they have a lot more data attached to them. And they seem a lot more personalized. Because there's so much more data that's available, we tend to not question the kind of data. We tend to just assume that it is truth. And many times, it can be a bell curve. Bell curves are seductive. It's much easier to deal with the standardized data. But if you start building your products around those bell curves without questioning the context where it came from, you can get a Black Mirror situation, right? No, nobody wants that, but that's why we have to continue to understand not only where the data is coming from, but what context the data grew out from. A good example of this would be Amazon ratings or NPS scores. These are all averaged out, but they have no necessary relation to the problem they are attempting to inform. 30, okay, great. So we have far more complexity, the projects that we're making today, and we are still, even as creators, thinking along the bell curve. So this is the part that concerns me the most. Even if we have all this data and granularity, our journey maps are still based around the average. Our feature prioritization is still based around the average. The way that we even think about our products are based towards the average. This is going to be a challenge, I think, in the next few years as we ourselves take on the responsibility to design for the individual and not the average. And so hopefully we can start thinking more like those aeronautical engineers. Hit, done.
If no, by the speaker. If there's a couple of chairs up here, these stools, you guys come up if you want. There's a couple of chairs up here on the front row. Seriously, it's hard to hear back there. Come up if you want. You don't have to stand back there. I know it's hard to hear. The acoustics in here are not the best.
Testing.
Yeah.
Oh, hey.
Woo, all right. So Diane Nacetta is our next speaker in the lightning rounds. and she has a company called UX Mentors. A lot of you know her from the community as a mentor for many years, and she's going to talk to us today about how much IA good and how much IA bad. Take it away.
Thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate that. How are we doing on the mic? Good? Okay. Hi, everybody. Hey. Okay, so we rock. Do we rock? Do we rock? Yeah, we rock. We totally rock. We tirelessly collaborate, right, to create these incredible experiences. And we do this by synthesizing all these academic backgrounds, right? Psychology, communication studies, library sciences, engineering, industrial design, art and literature. We do all of this because we are passionate about creating experiences in the digital world that will help people's lives be better, right? We make them so easy and insightful and delightful to use that we want it to become a ubiquitous part of everyday life. And guess what? We did it. Look at that. Yeah. The promise of ubiquitous technology is here, and we all had a part in that, right? You know, in the vehicles we drive, we can see that technology, what we wear, how we learn, how we socialize, and even how we imagine. This, by the way, is a picture of VR being used during the Olympics. Thought, just in case you can't see it. We can deposit money without going to the bank. We can make bank transfers, right? Whereas we used to have to do that in person, we don't do that anymore. We do that digitally. You know, we can track our sleep cycles, and we can track our heart rate on our wrists. We can get almost any answer from a keyboard just from a few clicks. And we can tell someone we love them by just tapping a single icon on a phone. I mean, it's amazing, right? We should be proud. I mean, we design for good. We have done an amazing job, and we're changing people's lives every day. And it's amazing. Look what we've done. I mean, people spend more time together, right? I mean, everyone is a lot healthier now, right? I mean, everyone is more educated. We've really evened out, you know, the education and knowledge base across the world. We're much more tolerant, and we're a lot kinder to each other, aren't we? Technology's really changed things for us, hasn't it? And hey, our roads are safer. I mean, we are so much more safer with technology, aren't we? We are more connected than we ever have been in the history of the world. And as a result, we are addicted. On December 17th, 2017, two Apple investors, Jana Partners LLC and the State of California Teachers Retirement System, wrote an open letter to Apple, urging the company to invest in more tools and to help children fight addiction to their gadgets and social media. The letter cited several studies that have been going on since 1998 on the negative effects of smartphones and social media on children's mental and physical health. Examples included distractive technologies in schools, the decreased ability for students to basically focus on educational tasks, and a higher risk of suicide and depression. One recent study cited was presented by Dr. Seo from Korea that found an imbalance in the brain chemistry of young children who were addicted to the internet. This was a set of brain scans that have been done. Between 1998 and 2017, there have been several studies done, and these brain scans will show areas that are designated atrophy. That means that the gray matter in the brain is being damaged from continual use of the internet. Yeah, it's pretty dark, right? This is what happens to children and adults when we knock it out of the park, when we synthesize to such an extent that we meet the criteria for our passion, this is what happens. And guess what? Sean Parker, the founding president of Facebook, knew it. And he gave an interview in January of 2018 after the open letter was sent to Apple and shared with the world. He gave an interview to the AP, and here's what he said about it. And guess what? He knew about it. So you have to ask yourself, I know that I ask myself after doing this research and thinking about it, are we really designing for good? Are we really the kind of people who are not knowledgeable enough to know that we might be changing people's brain chemistry? Do we really rock? I don't know. I don't have the answer. Do we?